So I would say Modern Warfare 3 Zombies has been out for enough time now for us to get a good idea of what this game is, to give a good opinion on it. And I think having played it a good amount, I can give you guys my opinion so that you can decide whether you should or shouldn't buy it just for the zombies mode. Not the multiplayer, not the campaign, zombies. I'm sure there are still things in the game that we have yet to find. We have DLC coming later on down the line, which means more content and also means with time, some problems that I have with the game right now will get fixed. But let me just give you my opinion on the state of Modern Warfare 3 Zombies right now. The first thing I really want to say is before I played this game, like everyone, from trailers and what we were told about it by Treyarch, I thought Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, even before playing it, was going to be bad. Sometimes you just get that inkling. I kind of got that feeling for Vanguard Zombies. It turned out to be right, but it's not always true, and that's the case for Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. This isn't bad. I just want to say that from the get-go. I thought this was going to be absolutely rubbish, that it was basically DMZ with zombies, and because I didn't enjoy DMZ then, there was no chance I was going to enjoy this. But you know what, for what it is, and that's important to take into consideration, not piling it in with all of the other COD Zombies games and modes that we've had in the past, as its own thing, I will say I'm liking it. That doesn't mean it's perfect. I'll go into specifics about what I do and don't like, but if you wanted my initial opinion on whether you should or shouldn't buy the game, I'd say yes. There's no guarantee that you're going to enjoy it. It's different from other COD Zombies games that you might be used to, but compared to Vanguard Zombies, which was terrible, and as someone who didn't like Outbreak and Cold War, for what it is and how different it is, I'm finding this fun. Now that could change, because a part of the reason why I'm enjoying it right now is due to challenges. It may be once I've completed everything that there is to do challenge-wise, then the game becomes boring and stale. I don't know. I haven't though. So to me at this very moment, I'm liking this game mode. And I would say if you're skeptical, but you're interested in COD Zombies, give it a try. Is it worth the full price of £70, $70 that you're going to pay for Modern Warfare 3, which does also include the campaign and multiplayer? No. I don't think this game's worth that with all three modes combined, never mind just zombies, but if you're willing to pay the price of it, unlike Vanguard, I will say it's different to COD Zombies that you've played previously, but it's different in a good way. That doesn't mean it doesn't come without problems though. Right now, at the date of me recording this on the 15th of November, it is riddled with bugs. I will say pretty much every single game that I've played, I'm experiencing at least one buggy thing per match, whether it be something as small as just one of the bosses, such as the Disciples, freaking out, going through walls, pacing up and down at 100 miles an hour, meaning you can't shoot it, whether that be mercenaries not dropping keycards or not being able to pick up certain drops like schematics, challenges not tracking. Unfortunately, you can tell that this isn't a finished game. We know that it was done in 16 months. Treyarch, which you may be surprised, a lot of people don't know it's them that have made this Zombies mode, didn't have much time to develop this. Granted, it is just a DLC for Modern Warfare 2, so a lot of what's used in this game is just from that one, which should technically mean they didn't need as much time as they'd usually get. And even with that, you shouldn't expect to have a game release with bugs. Unfortunately, the Zombies mode at this moment has quite a few. From my experience, I wouldn't say in general they're more game breaking, but I have seen people talking about servers crashing because of people doing glitches, which again, there are tons of them you can do in the game right now, which are causing servers to crash. A lot of this will get fixed over time, but still, it's not an excuse. You shouldn't really have to put up with it. But just going off my playtime, I haven't experienced anything game breaking, so I would think that most people won't either. But right now, if you do play it, you are guaranteed to at least see a bug or two every match, which can make some playthroughs pretty annoying, more so because you're on a timer. Unlike regular zombies, you don't have unlimited playtime. You can't play for 2, 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, however long you like. You have a set timer, which is 45 minutes or an hour if you include the zone. And I've got to say, for me, this is one of the main things that is ruining my experience right now. It just isn't enough time. And there are quite a few reasons why that doesn't work, but for me, the main one is by the time you've got everything in the game, by the time you've done a few contracts, got enough money to get a gold tier weapon or a Pack-a-Punch 2 or 3 level weapon, by the time you've got strong enough to get to the red zone, the game's over. You might have 5 or 10 minutes left to play, but it's not enough to enjoy what you've earned. You don't get to reap the rewards of looting or progressing, and this is even worse if you're a solo player. If you're playing with a couple of other players, it's still frustrating, but if you're playing solo, at least you can do contracts together to get them done quicker. At least you don't have to be as cautious because you have teammates to revive you. If you're playing solo, fully upgrading your weapon, getting enough money, getting strong enough to get to that red zone and complete contracts in there, 45 minutes isn't enough time to do that. You can go for longer, but by that time the zone starts coming in, and what I've noticed is, for some reason, the exfils are really weirdly placed. Like, when you get to that later timer, there aren't many exfil locations, and I'm finding myself, when I've played the game for about 45 minutes, that I'm miles away from the next one. So it's either go straight to the exfil and keep all of my stuff, or risk doing another contract or two and potentially not exfilling with anything, which is pointless. I'm finding that it's near impossible for me to enjoy my experience solo or get satisfaction from it, because it feels like you go in there, grab everything, and then leave, instead of going in, playing the game, instead of just looting and then leaving. And I've seen a lot of other people complain about this as well. The timer is just way too short. I'm not too sure why it's there in the first place. The only reason I could think of is because there are 24 players on the map. If there was no timer, then you'd have one team that would play maybe for an hour and leave, and then another team that played for 2 hours and then left, or 3 hours. Perhaps that would lead to an unequal amount of players on the map, but because it's not PvP, does that really matter anyway? If there's only one team left after a couple of hours, or if one team's stronger than the other, there's no PvP, so I can't really think what Treyarch's idea was behind having the timer in the first place, but if there is going to be one, it at least has to be 2 hours, to be honest. 1 hour's playtime is nowhere near enough. And whilst I'm talking about solo play, it's really hard solo. That doesn't mean it's not playable. It is in Zone 1 and Zone 2, which is the grey and yellow zone. If you're good at zombies, you'll be fine. It's still, for the most part, possible to do contract solo unless you're doing one that involves mercenaries, which are stupidly difficult to kill. I find you're best avoiding them solo unless you're cautious. The red zone, I don't really understand, because even co-op, it's difficult. It's not an area that you go in to play, it's an area that you go in to complete a challenge or get loot and then leave. You come back to the yellow zone. It isn't an area that you stay in and train the undead. So for that reason, I'm kind of finding it a little bit pointless. I get it, it's a challenge, but it's not a playable area. And every game that I've been in co-op with randoms, not even once, I don't think, I've had about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 games by now, not once out of those has any of my random co-op teammates completed a contract in the red zone. It's almost like no one wants to touch that area because it's unbelievably difficult. I get it's supposed to be like that, but I'll be honest, it's too much. Maybe I would change my mind if I could find teammates that would actually want to go in there, but if you're playing with random players, unless it's someone who's absolutely insane, it's just not going to happen, and going in there solo is pointless. And I'm kind of finding that's the same for solo anyway. This is a co-op game. One of the reasons why I'm finding it so fun right now is because it forces you to play with other players. I'm usually a solo player in zombies. I haven't played co-op since, I don't know, God, Black Ops 2, when I used to play town with randoms or friends. So because you have to play co-op on this, you can load in solo if you want to, but it just makes the experience a whole lot harder and not as fun in my opinion. There's no reason not to load in with other randoms, and then you can go off on your own. At least then you have people to revive you. But yeah, solo is a totally different story. It's still playable, and it is a lot harder, but I would say it isn't as fun. I'm actually enjoying playing with random people right now. The issue that comes along with that is, well, if these random people aren't your friends, a lot of the time you will find that they just go off and do their own thing anyway. Or what really frustrates me is when my teammates just exfil after about 10 minutes or completing one contract, which is so annoying. I'll have games where I'm sitting in the lobby waiting for it to fill. If it just fills with one other player, then I'll leave and wait for it to give me a team of 3. But when you load into the game with a full team anyway, and one of the teammates goes off and does his own thing, or like I said, exfils early, it kind of ruins the experience, and then you can't back out and search for another lobby because you lose all of your loot. A way that Treyarch could fix this is possibly adding teams of 4, which I don't really know why that's not a thing anyway. Why is it trios and not quads? At least then there's less of a chance that you aren't going to be left on your own. So that's another problem that I have with it. Kind of what plays into that though is because there's no offline mode, you're forced to play online. If you do have a bad internet connection, then this game is probably going to be unplayable for you. Normally in zombies you could go private match or just play offline, but you can't in this. You have to play with other players in a lobby of 24, so you have to play online. So if you do have a bad internet connection, which mine's okay, it's on and off. It was actually good up until today where I've been lagging quite a bit. Because of how this zombies works, there's nothing that could be done about that though. I've already determined that solo play isn't fun, so even if there was a private offline match playing on your own, I don't think I'd touch this. I'm enjoying playing with other players. Just looking at what else I've written down on my list here, as far as the general gameplay goes, what there is to do in game, there's actually a lot. Even though the timer situation is a problem, having to get to those different level pack-a-punches each game gives you something to grind towards. There are plenty of missions where it doesn't feel repetitive like it did in Outbreak. There are loads of schematics that you need to collect. I've only got a couple at the moment, but some of those do require you to go into those more difficult zones, which I just don't have time to do because the game isn't long enough. It's not giving me a chance to get to a level 2 or 3 pack-a-punch weapon, so I could survive in those higher zones, or get enough essence to buy something like a Juggernaut or more perks than 2 or 3. That has to be the main issue right now, the timer. But there's lots to do in the game, which is weird. I thought it was going to be bare bones like Outbreak and Cold War, but it's not. That is also one of the things that's making this a lot more fun than I expected at the moment, that there is a lot to do. There's lots of challenges, there's lots of story missions, lots of schematics. Because of that, I'm wondering, once I've completed all of this stuff, when I don't have anything to grind towards, unlike older Zombies games where you could just challenge yourself to get to round 20, 30, 50, 100, whatever, because we don't have rounds here, I'm just a bit worried that when I've got everything, then it will just become a game of XP. You go in, complete missions, extract, and the only thing you get from it is XP. There are loads of challenges, missions, and schematics to collect though, which I think should last the general player up until Season 1, where hopefully they'll add more, so I'm a bit worried about that, but I can also see Treyarch adding in a ton more where people won't run out. We'll just have to wait and see on that front though. It's a big factor as to why this game's fun, so maybe in a week or two that could change. Still sticking on gameplay, I guess the other main mechanic, do you call it, feature, are the loadouts. I'm finding this system generally to be fine. The only thing I do question sometimes is the insured weapons. If you manage to exfil every single game, that's fine, but you're never 100% going to manage to do that. There is going to be a time when you die in game and don't exfil, meaning you lose all of your weapons that you might have had for 10 plus games or whatever. And when that happens to you a couple of times in a row, because the insured weapons are in a timer and a lot or some of my stored contraband weapons aren't ideal, I just don't get the timer on the insured weapon slots. And when you do lose everything, having to regain it all back, that 3-slot armor vest, your stored perks, ether tools, it can take you a good few games to get everything back so you start off the game in an ideal place. I guess that's part of the challenge. At the same time, that also makes exfilling a priority, which comes back to the timer situation. If you want to exfil, you have to leave the game earlier to guarantee it, which then doesn't give you enough time to just enjoy the game. I was thinking, to save time, should they give us the opportunity to keep pack-a-punched weapons, so if you exfil with them, you then load back in with that pack-a-punched weapon instead of having to repap it every single game, unless you've got stored Ethereum, which is hard to come by. Maybe that would make it too easy, but for the timer situation it would really help. And then we come to the final aspect of what makes a Zombies mode in my opinion. I've always said Zombies is about the map, the gameplay, the Easter eggs, and the storyline. We've spoken about the gameplay. I've already said there's plenty of things to do, which includes Easter eggs and the story missions, which is a replacement of the main quest for now. The map is what it is, it's the Warzone map. That leaves us with the storyline, which I think is probably the most disappointing part about it. Not the missions. I don't mind the way that the story is being told, but I just think the storyline in general is pretty weak and boring. We've seen all of the cutscenes. Act 1 and 2 I think were pretty boring. Act 3, when we saw what potentially is Samantha come out of the rift, was pretty cool. But just following the storyline in game, I don't think is that interesting if you're into that. I know a lot of people aren't, bothered. I'll be honest, it might just be because I don't find the Dark Ether storyline as interesting anyway. Everything story-wise that we've been told so far in Cold War, Vanguard, and now Modern Warfare 3 Zombies is a part of the Dark Ether story compared to BO4 and before that, so BO3, 2, 1, World at War. That old story compared to this new Dark Ether one and what we're being told and how we're being told it so far in Modern Warfare 3 through these missions and just getting the radio transmissions from the characters isn't too interesting, but that's just from my point of view. Everybody has a different favourite movie and a different favourite story, which is fine. The storyline in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies right now I think is pretty weak. So if I had to summarise this, what is Modern Warfare 3 Zombies? Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is DMZ with zombies. That's the basics of it. But there's something about the gameplay and the challenges that are making this a lot more fun than DMZ. And it may be the aspect of zombies as well. If it was just AI, this would be a hell of a lot boring. But because it's the idea of, zombies, it makes what is DMZ just that little bit more interesting. It's most comparable to Outbreak, I guess, in Black Ops Cold War. I think this is a lot better than that. Outbreak was very bare bones when it came to things to do. There's a lot to do in this, so this is a hell of a lot better than Outbreak, if that's what you were after, but it's nothing like OG Zombies. This isn't round based. That's not me saying this is better or worse than OG Zombies because it's different. It's its own thing. This is enjoyable, and so is round-based zombies. They both are. And just like round-based zombies isn't for everybody, I don't think this is for everybody either. But I will say, if you're skeptical and you haven't played it, just like me, where I thought this was going to be terrible, I was surprised. So I would say give it a try, play a few games, not just 1, 10, so you can actually fully experience it with the short amount of playtime you have, because it is different, and unlike Vanguard Zombies, it's not bad. That's just my opinion, but for what it is, just DMZ with zombies and more challenges added. It's nothing amazing or new really, but co-op, it is fun. So there we go. If you've played it, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. If you haven't, has that changed your mind or not? Why don't you want to play it? I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Thank you all for watching the video today. If you have enjoyed, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay updated with the latest videos on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.